First and foremost, thank you all for the team of City of Light for joining us today. I'm really excited to get this talk in. Just a quick FYI, this will be recorded, so all of our community will hear it. It's a Friday night, so not necessarily a lot of people like to join live, but most of our users like to watch this, listen to this a little later. So thank you for joining us. I'm really excited to talk to you all today. Real quick, maybe we can just go down the line and get some quick introductions on who we have here on the call, and maybe just a little bit of your experience and what you're bringing to the project here at City of Light.
Yeah, I guess I'll start. I'm Kenny in Web3, and I go by Christopher in real life. I'm a 25-year-old entrepreneur that started in esport and media. I fell in love with blockchain around 2017, and I saw the massive potential it had. So I wrote out the whole bear. I continued to educate myself in the space, and I've been in the NFT space as well since just after Apes launched their mint. And I am the founder of City of Light, as well as the COO for Founders Factory.
Okay. Should I go next? I'll go next.
Do you want me to go
I'm
and
Terry
let the stars go? Oh, go.
I'm Terry Kavanaugh. I worked for Marvel for about 20 years as a writer-editor. We now have a company called Inksmith that does custom comic books for people as high-end gifts. We were approached by Kenny about the City of Light project. This is Howard Mackey and myself. Howard works with me in Inksmith. We really liked what we heard. We really liked the energy behind it with Kenny. And the more we've been involved, the more exciting it is, all the possibility. We are doing the world building for this project. So we'll be doing comic books, and we're helping them develop the storylines for other mediums, animation, games, etc. Howard?
Yeah, okay. I'm Howard Mackey. I'm a longtime writer of comic books. I started out as an editor at Marvel Comics and then have been writing comics ever since. I've mostly known for Spider-Man, Ghost Rider, and a whole bunch of other stuff. And I'm still working on comic books. I actually have a project coming out from Marvel featuring Ghost Rider in the spring of this year. And I echo what Terry said about how we were drawn into City of Light, and it caught our attention pretty quickly. And while and I've said this before, we frequently bandy about the term world building. For me, this is the fascinating part: is world discovery. We're going and discovering new characters and areas of the world of City of Light. And it's very entertaining for me personally, which is the only way that I can stay involved in a project, is to be entertained and involved at every aspect of it.
And I throw him treats occasionally too. That keeps him involved.
Yeah, because typically I'm dragged into every project kicking and screaming because I don't want to do this.
No. Because when Kenny pitched you City of Light with Terry on the phone, it was Kenny that brought you, and it wasn't even Terry. And even Terry messaged Kenny and said, "You got him hook, line, and sinker."
Yep.
I remember it very well. Terry come back and said, "Do you know what you're doing?" And I was like, "Of course."
Oh, don't be too impressed, but I'm a cheap date.
So I'll do my quick introduction. I'm like the the most inconsequential person in this. I'm talking Tree OX. I'm the founder and CEO of Founders Factory. Kenny's my COO. I've taken heavy personal investment in City of Light. I love Terry and Howard, and they're coming through our incubator system and into members of our network and for use of our utilities, which Kenny can explain later. Or if not, you can research about it. This is more about introducing Kenny and Terry and Howard to the space and just kind of letting everyone know who they are. Everyone already knows who they are if they're in comic books, but the space is very, very finicky with regard to like actually knowing that these people are legitimate. And that's why we wanted to push out AMAs to kind of show like, look, this is real. These people are very, very real. And they have an extensive career, and we are all going to love the work product they put out because we've been loving the work product they put out since we were kids. So that's it.
Excellent. Well, thank you for the very energetic, very personal introductions, guys. I can already say that the energy that I'm getting from this AMA is better than probably 99% of the AMAs that I've done, and I've done a lot of AMAs, so I'm already really excited, even more so. I just took 2 pictures of. I literally have the Astonishing X-Men: Age of Apocalypse #1 and Uncanny X-Men #1 sitting on my desk, graded, just chilling here. It's like two of the first comics I've ever read. So like I said, very, very inspirational people to my childhood. So thank you. Let's just go ahead and jump into it. Can we maybe get a quick overview of exactly what City of Light is, what it's maybe trying to do here in this space?
Yeah, I'll take care of. So City of Light is a comic book franchise that I started around a year ago with my team, and we worked on it to build a good foundation. And then I engaged Terry and Howard with my idea, as their experience and extensive network in the industry is exactly what I knew I needed to push City of Light globally in Web2. Terry and Howard share my excitement when it comes to being able to be one of the first people to innovate and merge an industry that they spent their whole lives in with an emerging tech industry like blockchain and NFTs, filled with opportunities to innovate how things are done and potentially set new standards for the future. They have since become so integrated with City of Light that they didn't say this, but they're also my co-founders. Terry is actively working as the producer and editor, and Howard is the writer and the overall world builder for City of Light. They're a very effective duo that already has written some amazing things for City of Light that I wish I could share, but a lot of it is a part of our already created Bible of this world that has a lot of future arcs and plots for it in the future. Starting next week, I am going to start pushing a little bit of lore and slowly unwrap some exciting things about City of Light in lore terms. And we do not intend to limit ourselves to being just a comic book. We are actively working on staging for some big moves when it comes to entertainment. And I'm going to let Terry have a chance to talk a little bit about that, maybe a little bit later, or now if he wants to.
I can. I mean, should we talk about the story now, or do we want to not give much away? Kenny, why don't you give an overview of what your high concept was?
So the whole concept for me with City of Light is not only to just create this world in this franchise. It was, like I said earlier, it is to be able to innovate and merge these two industries. And I think that is what I also told and pitched Terry in the early stages as well, which I think you got very excited about, Terry, when we talked about it. And so we are staging now to launch a Genesis collection. It's going to be 2,800 pieces of NFTs. And shortly after that mint, we're going to have some collectibles that will be made that we're going to create these loot crates, and they will be an origin story comic book that Terry and Howard will personally sign, every single one of them. Some trading packs that will have digital use cases with trading cards, a large designed map for City of Light without revealing too much about the function it has. It has a very big part in how we plan to, like, the merge, make this digital, as well as making it that fun experience where you can have a comic book in your hand, have these collectibles on your shelf, but also have it in a way so that you have these digital versions that are, as we get closer and closer into a meta as well, where you can merge and have these collectibles and know they are legitimate. I guess that's a brief explanation.
So I think also you might want to address like the concept of what City of Light is as far as the story. I know that we're going to be leaking stuff. Well, I'm forcing you to leak stuff next week, but just a brief overview of that. And then an interjection real quick is Terry and Howard found out about this and asked their kids. This is the initial conversation that I had with Terry. And when I explained to him what City of Light was doing and what Founders was doing with integrating the stuff that Kenny had his ideas for that merged well with us, he said, it's like a young Marvel, the way you guys are trying to integrate stuff and intertwine things. There's a much bigger plan here that's not been released yet. And that is simply because we believe in building it before we put it out. I've instructed Kenny not to talk about it. And I know he wants to, and Terry knows not to talk about it, but there's a lot of stuff going on in the background. that I think people are going to be surprised by. And one of the big things that founders and City of Light believe in is not only giving people a digital collectible, but also giving them intrinsic value to their digital collectibles. So the Genesis Pass is really a pass for exclusive in real world stuff as City of Light moves through its roadmap, especially with regards to traditional, entertainment franchising stuff. So comic books are the first, collectibles and additional things that as a pass holder, they will be able to claim and have shipped to them. So it's essentially a merch pass, I would say, along with an issue 1 pass that's signed by Terry and Howard.
Yeah, very good. And also never to be replicated as well. The goodies that we put in these loot crates for the Genesis, we're not going to print more of those comic books. We're not going to make them anymore. So it's a very once in a lifetime opportunity to get these early City of Light collectibles that, we'll make. And Terry, I actually want to shoot it to you for the world introduction sort of thing, because I don't want to spill any beans with all the information that I have. I know you know what we can't say about how you and Howard have so far produced and some of the world things that you have, right, that we can share, if that makes sense.
I can speak to what appealed. So I guess I hope I can say this. I can say it's a post-dystopian world. But one of the things that really appealed to me about this project from the beginning was right in the title, City of Light, you know that there's this beacon of hope in this post-dystopian world. So you have many people struggling to survive in different ways, in different territories and lands. And then you have this central place, the City of Light, that people strive to get to. And what we're very careful to do in all of this, I'm a strong believer that, and I've said this before, I know Kenny and Tree have heard me say this a million times, I'm a strong believer that nobody's a villain. Nobody wakes up in the morning and says, what nasty, evil thing can I do today? And people,
I do.
Well, okay, not counting Howard. He's the exception that proves the rule. And it's usually to me. So I could take it. But people think they're doing the right thing for whatever reasons, whether it's for them, their families, for the world. I mean, Dr. Doom, in my mind, wants to take over the world because he thinks it'll be a better world for it. He can eliminate half the problems of the world, not just because he's tyrannical. There's a bit of that in there as well. And so our villains, quote unquote, may have heroic motives and end up going down a bad path. Our heroes are going to be forced to do bad things in the name of what they think is right. So the characters are going to be incredibly complex and not easily defined or not easily put into one category or another. And there'll be crossovers. Some of them may start as heroes and end as villains or vice versa. But everyone, this is the most important thing to me as an editor, and I know it's important to Howard as a writer too. Everyone has good reason for what they're doing. It may not be a reason you or I would agree with, but it's a reason that makes sense.
I love that, and I love what you said. Especially with like the Dr. Doom, kind of reference. He's just trying to take care of his people. A lot of times. He's just trying to. If you live in Latveria, he's a great leader, right? So I love that aspect. So I guess my first question is coming from working with these characters that are already established, Spider-Man, the X-Men, the Avengers, things like that, and working with those characters. How different is it to come into a project where you literally are creating something just out of the ether, where it doesn't have any backstory, there aren't any preconceived notions of who these characters are, and you really get to develop them yourself?
I think Howard.
I can jump in on that. I mean, it's initially very challenging, and then almost immediately after that, incredibly freeing. Because, of course, when we were working within and still working within the constraints of the Marvel or the DC universe, you're dealing with a long history of continuity. which, as Terry and I know, when he ridiculously came up with the concept of the Clone Saga, that can present a lot of problems going forward. It also can be rewarding as well because you have the vast history to draw from. But in this case, what I loved, just this touches on the previous question as well, is that the concept presented essentially a crucible of a world that we were able to, through that, come up with characters who we now get to see how they respond to this very different future, quite frankly. And that's the fun part, because pretty much every time Terry and I talk about it, as writers, we're always dealing with what ifs. I would say every few sentences when you're creating something begins with, well, what if? And the City of Light, the world in which a City of Light exists, is just nonstop what ifs. We are constantly, wending our way through a kind of a foggy path and discovering things around every corner. So as I said, it challenging and freeing at the same time.
Yeah, a foggy path the same way the characters really are discovering the world around them.
Absolutely.
And to what Howard said earlier, and to your question, there are advantages and disadvantages to writing Peter Parker or Spider-Man. He gets, if you come up with a scenario, how Peter Parker would act, what he would say, what Spider-Man would do in that, because there's a rich history to draw from. He almost writes himself once you come up with the scenarios, the situations, the plots. That's an advantage to that we don't have here. But we also have a freedom here that we didn't have with Spider-Man, which is how, not to bore everyone, how the whole Clone Saga came about. We found ourselves in a situation because of the long history of Spider-Man. Previous writers had Spider-Man get married to the most successful model in town, so they were living in the nicest penthouse in town. He had graduated from school, and they had essentially written the character away from himself and our audience. And we were stuck with that because of the long history. We don't have any of that here. Now, we solved the Spider-Man problem with the Clone Saga, but that took a lot of finagling to get there. I mean, we discussed having Peter Parker get divorced or having Mary Jane die, but that would have added more baggage to him as opposed to cleaning him up and making him more streamlined. I mean, we were able to solve that problem, but here we're not presented with those problems. It's all opportunities.
That's incredible.
Bore everyone to sleep?
No, not at all. I just, again, I'm sitting here going, like, as I'm listening and talking to you guys, I'm going through some of the body of work and just pulling out some of like just that you guys were part of some of my favorite issues and favorite storylines. So it's just really neat. No, I love to see that, and I love to hear that. Maybe kind of I want to maybe, is there any comparisons to like the setting of things? I know we said a dystopian kind of universe, but is there any maybe parallels you can draw to other creations that might be similar to this kind of world? Because I'm a huge dystopian fan, but it kind of is a broad term nowadays, right?
Terry. Oh yeah.
Yes.
For me, when I chose to run, and Terry actually will 100% agree with me, because he was like, I can't believe you had the same thought. When I first talked to him was when I chose City of Light to incubate, because I read the plan and I was like, this is a really good thing. It was, to me, it had this grungy yet like hopeful feeling of a dystopian universe, which is it's.
Oh, we lost Trey.
Blipped out. The man caught on to him.
Trey?
The government.
So what I just wanted to say though, Terry, before, like, you know what I've said, Terry, when I say like, oh, let's, I wanted to relate to this, as we talk about, is that I can say that, right? With the dead, without me saying but you know what I'm talking about, right? Yeah. So when it comes to relatable universes, I foresee City of Light being not a kids thing either, right? But as you know, as you would feel when you're watching, let's say, Walking Dead, right? It's a little bit gory, it's a little bit matured content, but it's not out of like this world crazy when it comes to like, yeah. So I guess, yeah. Hello, Tree.
Hey, so I'm sorry I rugged. My wife called me. But yeah, so the initial thing that I thought of was like an Eon Flux vibe. And I don't know if anyone remembers that cartoon from MTV. It had like that dystopian yet highly technological, like gritty feel, yet somehow clean and sexy and smooth. That's really the vibe that the art and the story kind of pushed me towards. That's what turned me on to it.
Which is a very stylized look and story. This doesn't have necessarily the same art style, but it will be stylized in its own way.
Right on. And again, just because I'm trying to make the relatable understandings in my head, do you have an idea of maybe of a comparison of what that would be? The style that is.
That's hard to define until we develop it. I wouldn't want to trap it into an identity just yet. I really wouldn't want to do that. I will say that, also backing up to your question about is there any comparison, just today, Howard and I, when we were chatting, he came up with, Howard, you may not even remember this, it was just a throwaway line on your part, a series that you were a fan of when you were younger that no one on this call will remember. And I think really was a nice touchstone, and it set off my mind towards other things. Do you want to mention it, Howard?
No, but I'd like to just continue with the thread. I don't want to get so tied down by the dystopian aspect of it, because Kenny mentioned The Walking Dead, and the things that I think make those stories work. I get bored to death by dystopia, quite frankly. I would not choose to go there on vacation, quite frankly. But it's the pockets of, and Terry mentioned this at the very beginning, the concept of City of Light, which means that in this dystopian future, there are going to be pockets of not just the City of Light, but other aspects where characters have come together to try to make this world work for them. And it always comes back. Well, the world that we're creating is one thing. We're also populating it with characters out there that have to be fully developed. So I can see I do see the Aeon Flux vibe in there. There's also some of the art. It has a kind of a blueberry. Was that the name? Name just went right out of my head.
Mobius.
Mobius and Inkal, and that's the vibe that I get in terms of the artwork, and it's certainly influencing some of the story that I'm working. Because whenever I'm sitting down to write a story, I always have a movie playing in my head, and that usually is a movie directed by an artist that I've either worked with. Like when I write a Spider-Man story, it's always John Romita Jr.'s artwork that's playing in my head. But in this case, I do find myself coming back to Mobius with a lot of this stuff. It's because it's the world and the characters together that make it work. The comic that Terry was referring to, I will mention since he asked. It was just a throwaway. It was something that grabbed me when I was a young reader. It was the Atomic Knights by DC Comics, which nobody is going to remember, but me and Terry, which was just what's that?
It's a good inspiration, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's set in the future, and it's got people that find old armor that somehow is infused with atomic power, and it's kind of a campy thing, and but that is not what we're going for here. It's just overall, it's funny for me to be using these words, but I'm having fun creating stories in a dystopian future. If that makes sense.
And I think the point of that is that all stories are just about people. All of them, even funny animal stories, Bugs Bunny stories are about, a anthropomorphized bunny who's a person basically. So the dystopian setting is just that. It's a setting, and it allows for plot, but really good story comes out of character, not plot. The plot is there to carry the characters through, to have them have arcs in their life where they face personal conflicts. In comics, we used to call it the can't-must conflict all the time, where Spider-Man swinging across town because he has to get to Aunt May. She just ended up in the hospital, but he sees Dr. Octopus robbing a bank. He can't stop to fight Dr. Octopus because he must get to Aunt May, but he must fight Dr. Octopus to protect the innocent people. So it's the can't-must conflict, and how a character resolves those is really the measure of that character and the evolution of that character. And in some way, they're always a little different by the end of any given story for that. All stories just about people. So the dystopian element is, in a sense, the least important part of this. And that's why Howard can have fun doing this, even if he doesn't want to go on vacation to dystopia, because he's writing characters that he'll enjoy and appreciate and understand.
That makes a lot of sense. I love that explanation. It's we don't read we don't read comic books for the setting. We read it for the characters and the stories and the humanization elements of it. So I love that. So kind of to get back on track with like the NFT aspect of it and the Web3 aspect of this. Back in the day, if I was a reader for a comic book and I wanted to interact with you guys, the creators, that method was to write you guys a letter and then hope in a few months that my letter would get published and you guys would respond to it. What kind of elements do we have with this future project that you're hoping that maybe gives readers and fans a new way to interact with the creators and just the intellectual property in general?
And he has more ideas about that every day.
A very easy and quickly
answer that we can't divulge. But
a lot of it, but I'm going to say a very quickly one and very easy one, right? That answers that one. It's that come into Discord and shoot a message to Terry, right? Or Howard. Hey, I have this comic book, right? I got it. I'm a Genesis holder. We have chats set up and everything and people can just interact with them. You don't have to write a letter and hope that they see it in 4 weeks from now. You can send a message, and unless they're asleep, they'll probably in a couple of days see it and they'll reply, and maybe conversation comes out of it. Like we're also now sitting here and talking like we're doing as well. So I guess that's a lot of things that we have planned and are developing.
To add to that, to add to that, and kind of, there's a lot of stuff that we can't talk about, but that's part of City of Light's plan that we haven't released yet. With that being said, one of the things that Kenny found very, very important is we have a very Web3 ethos at Founders, and he upholds that very well. And access to creators is something that even Terry had mentioned about doing anything in any major IP and comic book when he was with Marvel. It's the lawyers get involved in this and that, which is really a stifling factor to creation. And what Kenny's idea that coupled well with ours and our kind of plans was creators can get this and have access to creators that literally know everything about this industry. They have contacts they can introduce. Stories can be introduced to them. And really, that flow of information, which is kind of like a decentralized Web3 ethos, can start without it really being gated necessarily. And people that love comic books that have ideas can access creators and say, hey, I have an idea I wanted to bounce off you. You know anyone I can talk to? That ease of access is kind of one of the things that is planned for future utility. And we want to develop the platform for it before we announce it. Or sorry, finish development of it.
Sure, and I'm sorry that a lot of my questions are probing questions. That's just kind of how I do things, and I understand that you guys aren't really
That's your job.
too much.
Yeah, and the thing is the access to Terry and Howard is the beginning. If you go through their dating book, their little black book they have, some of the, like you previously, I don't know if it'll be played or not. That was not intended to be something in the interview, but like the people that they have access to, that you can be like, hey, I'm looking for something like this. And they're like, oh yeah, well, reach out to so-and-so for you. That's access that no one has in the space currently. I hear it from founders all the time. And that was something that gives City of Light a great ability, especially with regards to comic book and pop art, is being able to really start to couple the Web 2 with Web 3, like two worlds merging, which is something I know that that Terry especially loves. You know, that aspect of like, you know, a magical realm of fake internet money and, you know, the real world and real world people. And that's something that City of Light intends, other than just its IP for entertainment, intends to push out. This is intended to post-mint, push in the Web 2 world with the conversations Terry's having, while at the same time start to integrate a platform that we have under development to integrate Web 2 and Web 3 in that kind of entertainment franchise, kind of, I don't know how to say it, but like to ease the flow of information between the two worlds and to help people that are part of City of Light access information and get help with, you know, what they're interested in.
Right on. Okay, so obviously we're talking about the future and what you guys are creating with City of Light, but we do have the the immediate future, right? So the things that are coming sooner than later, which I assume is the mint, right? Can we maybe talk about the details of that date? What exactly, when exactly is the mint date? Maybe the cost, if you guys have that figured out, and what exactly are we minting? Are these characters that are going to be in the story? Are these characters based off of people in the story? Maybe give a little insight into that.
So we're staging to mint now in the next 2 weeks, and it's a 2,828 supply at a 0.03 price. And the immediate return on those NFTs, what you're buying is our Genesis creation of people living in this world, right? So it will, like you said, we have some one-on-ones that are in fact our main characters as well within the story, but then you have your regular people, regular guy in the street as well, but they're still part of this universe and they're very easily distinguished to be a part of City of Light when you look at them. And the immediate return you will get on these is that shortly after, it's these loot crates that I mentioned earlier, where we are going to ship and I wish I could show this one as well, but we have a origin comic book already, correct me if I'm wrong, Terry, but already written. It's the whole thing written. It's going to be shipped to the printers and all that stuff and properly done. And that's one thing we're going to put in the box for people to receive. So it's an origin comic book, the one that Terry and Howard is going to sign, and people will be able to have these in their hands shortly after, as well as the plans we have for the digitalization of it as well. And then we have other packs of trading cards, which also features, the fun thing with the trading cards is it's going to feature a lot of Genesis content and art and stuff like that in terms of characters, but we are going to sneak in a lot of characters that have not maybe been revealed yet. There's going to be things on those trading cards that is for future of City of Light, sort of like Easter eggs and future stuff that will also have a big part in building a digital collection as well as having a physical collection to it, including some other goodies as well that we're going to put in. If that answers the questions I I might just start rambling if.
No, you answered the question and some, so I appreciate that. And so, obviously, we're talking about the evolution of this comic book and its relation to the Web3 space, but also, the comic book industry is a very Web2, very physical. Obviously, you have comicsology and the things of digital comics, but it's a very bigger audience in that. Is that another audience that you guys are also hoping to tap into, not just the Web3 space, but also still, market this out to comic distributors and things like that?
We fully do, and I think Terry, you would be the perfect to answer, so I don't say anything, right? It's just about the stuff we talked about with these strategic partnerships, right? If that's something, and the stuff that we already engaged for Web2, right?
Yes. Yes, we, certainly not this prequel comic that Kenny's talking about for the Loot Crate. That wouldn't be available to the public. But once we start printing the actual series, that will then be for sale as well, probably through the website to start before going to the larger comic book distributors. And then have had conversations with production companies about the next steps for developing possible Netflix series or animated series, etc. We've begun those conversations.
Now, to add to that, we're also in talks with more non-traditional Web3 companies, like I don't want to say the name, but essentially, large marketplaces that take credit card. One of the things about comics in Web3 is most of us are gamers. Most of us read comics. We love anime. That's why I see Azuki's in here. We dig it, right? So it's a perfect segue when you talk about one of the things that Web3 needs to start getting is mass adoption, right? So coupling it and saying this is available to the Web3 audience for the Genesis, and trying to transition to more traditional markets, while also adding that same transition to the Web3 market with the partnerships that we're currently negotiating to kind of try and pull in consumers and introduce them to Web3, while at the same time providing them that same experience, only with more utility. Like you said earlier, when you get a comic book, you have to write the author of the book or the creator and hope that they get the mail, or that it doesn't get sifted through and then you never get it and then you never hear back. Web3, the ethos of decentralization and all that, kind of alleviates that process and brings ease of use and access of use to the actual consumer. And I think that when consumers start to see that, it's a way to start to push more traditional market integration into the Web3 blockchain arena.
And I just want to add, because we didn't mention that yet as well, like the Loot Crates, the comics, and all that stuff as well. City of Light will also go forward and always be a partner of Founders Factory. So immediate return on NFTs as well is that you unlock this ecosystem, which is Founders Factory, where we will generate these tokens, have access to marketplaces that are already built and have been functioning for months already. So there is, I don't want to spill too much beans on that as well, Tree, if you want to talk about the Founders Factory.
Okay, so I can touch on that real quick. I really don't like. Founders Factory's been around for over a year. We have multiple utilities built. Basically, we have several projects. I think we're up to 20 that are part of the ecosystem. It's token gated through our utility token. It's not like the way you acquire the token is you generate it from your NFT collection, and holders can use that to purchase gift cards, to purchase whitelist whenever people want them, purchase NFTs from within the network and externally from the network or from outside the network, and enter raffles and have fun. It's really meant as a utility for people to see intrinsic value while projects hit their development stages without them having to liquidate their project wallets to create utility for holders. So they can focus their funds where they're meant to be focused.
Perfect.
Right on. Lots of awesome stuff. I'm glad to hear all the future plans. So excellent. Well, I want to make sure that I respect your all's time and make sure I don't keep you guys here on a Friday night. But I want to make sure that before we wrap things up, that you guys kind of have kind of a space to kind of talk about maybe something that we didn't bring up or we didn't touch on. Because I mean, I'll be honest with you, if this was a comic book related Discord and this is about specifically about comic books and the whys and the wheres and how do you get inspiration, I could talk to Howard and Terry literally all night. But again, I wouldn't do that to you guys tonight. But I want to make sure that we do. Make sure you guys put your best foot forward when everyone listens to this, and maybe some things that maybe we didn't brush on that we can quickly go over before we wrap it up.
Well, does anyone have any other questions? That might be, we want to give them an opportunity.
Yeah, for sure. So we run a guest questions chat in conjunction to this, and I haven't seen any, and that's usual for these interviews here on Fridays. But yeah, no. If anyone has a question, would love for you to step up real quick and ask it if you have one.
Can be about anything.
I think while people think about that, one of the things I want to say that I think is important, the reason we're here is in the space right now, we've moved into an arena of people that have been rugged and really like shaken class of investors, right? That we've all been through the bear. We've all seen we had the good times and we saw the really, really bad times. We saw a lot of negative crap come out. And there's a whole segment of people that want to see legitimacy. They want to see projects that have stuff created. You're not going to be waiting for a year. Everything that we talked about, it's not future plans that are 6 months away. And I mean, even with platform release, it is impending. One of the things we focus on heavily is actually getting the stuff done, because we are firm believers in being able to provide holders what they're told they're going to get within a relatively reasonable amount of time. And that time frame is weeks, not months. Everything that is the initial utility for City of Light and everything that is the founder's utility, in addition to City of Light's utility, is either already in existence or is staged to be deployed immediately post-mint. And I think that's that's something that needs to be touched on, because as an investor of other NFT projects, it's one of the things you hear. A lot of people promise a whole lot. They say it's going to happen quick, and 6 months later, everyone's still waiting. That's not the case. This is meant to proof of stake for the idea with Terry and Howard. We've been preparing this for a very long time.
That's reassuring. I love that. We didn't get any questions in that meantime. But again, want to make sure I give you guys the chance to kind of maybe say the last word and kind of go out on a positive thing about maybe let's add the question. What are you guys most excited about? Here for the future of City of Light. Maybe that's the question we'll end on.
I can answer for myself. I find this entire experience educational to me. And I know that's a bad word in entertainment sometimes, but this has been a learning process for me to understand, and I don't even pretend to really understand it at all. I'm learning through these guys more about Web3, more about how storytelling can translate and be bigger than just words and pictures on a page, which is really how Howard and I came up learning that and doing that. And now it's how it's applied to other mediums and how it can be more interactive and how it can cross over with itself in other mediums. I mean, this has been really a learning process for me that I'm enjoying tremendously.
And I guess for me, it's like not only, or Howard, if you want to say to what Terry said.
Oh, I mean, for me, it is an active exploration of this world that I was introduced to, and that for me, it really does come back to it becoming a fun ride and running into characters that I'm enjoying meeting and quite frankly developing, and and getting them to lead me around this world. When I was working for Marvel, the Marvel universe for the most part existed in the streets of Manhattan or Brooklyn, occasionally Queens when you're doing Spider-Man. But it was very, we called it the Marvel universe. Rarely until the Guardians of the Galaxy or Silver Surfer did we go out into the universe. I would say 75% of the stories were in New York City. That's the fun part for me here, is that we're stepping outside of our comfort zone, and I'm finding it very comforting.
And I guess for me to just wrap it up then, it's like, to me, it is, we all know who are here that we are very early in something that is, in my opinion, going to change the world. So for me, it's the possibility to sit here with sort of like a blank sheet of paper and a pen and be able to connect with people, work with people, and kind of draw the image that we want to see in the future for how this is going to turn out. And it goes back to what I said as well, innovate and create new standards that in the future, maybe even the big guys like Marvel comes and is like, oh, we want to do it like this too. We didn't do this or think about this before, but this is now the new thing. So that is for me, next to also getting to build this amazing universe with Terry and Howard. And Terry can confirm, sometimes we sit for hours and just vibe and talk about City of Light. So next to that, it's the whole being able to be early and innovate, to me, that is really attracting with this.
That's awesome, gentlemen. And again, I can't express how excited I am to see this come to fruition. And again, if anyone out there listening to this wants to get in on the action, again, the mint is in 2 weeks. I assume there's a Discord we can join. I believe that is connected to your all's City of Light Twitter account, right?
Yes.
So if you guys are interested, get active, get in there, so we can participate in the building of this lore and the building of this world in the Web3 space. So I'm really excited. I really want to appreciate you all finding time out of your early weekend here to talk to us, and we can't wait to further see how this partnership takes off. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. And then
Thank you.
I want to say on Discord, if there's creators out there that hear this, come and join. Terry and Howard are in there. They're there to answer questions. And one of the reasons that I was so happy to have them is they are open books. They're willing to help people. They like this idea. They believe in the ethos of Web3. They kind of, in conversations with Terry, he's kind of been like, this is something new, but it's amazing. I wish this was around when I was younger. So get in there and ask, talk and ask questions to them if you have anything that you want to know.
I have a question specifically for Terry, but you don't have to answer this now. I want to know what your opinions are on Chris Claremont, but we'll talk about that later.
Okay, we'll talk about it later. I love Chris. I love Chris. He's incredibly talented. He's an incredibly talented guy. I worked with him on a million different things. And he is very, very creative, and sometimes he was a little too creative, and you had to shoot down the ideas. I'll give you one example, because I think you'll enjoy this, only if you know these characters. When I was editing Excalibur and Nightcrawler was a member of Excalibur, Chris wanted to establish, because we knew that Mystique and Destiny, two women, were a couple. He wanted to establish that Destiny was the mother and Mystique was the father, because she was a shape changer and was able to shape change her genitalia into baby making.
Wow, that is a super off the wall, unnecessary thing to add into there, but that's hilarious. Why?
I had to shoot it down, not because I had any issue with anything
with genitalia.
People's genitalia are their own business, but including Mystique's. But my issue was more that didn't mean she had the ability to create sperm and do all of that. Otherwise, if she shape changed into Superman, be able to fly, etc. I had to sort of, I had to go the science route with him to also, I knew the editor-in-chief, Tom DeFalco, would shoot it down if I didn't, so.
Yeah.
Well, that's brilliant. Well, I thank you for indulging that question again. I have a million more. I'll pop into the Discord and maybe chat with you guys sometime. But I really do appreciate all of that. And again, y'all have a great night, and I can't wait to see what you guys have in store. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
We had fun.